is to bring this back here. So what you want to do?
Well, what did you mean when you said?
Well, see, if you want to send a chat, you don't see chat.
I mean, what you said you would switch when.
Well, it's when we always switch. When we throw it out to them.
Okay, gotcha.
Whatever, it's just this all.
That goes away.
And
You
then
just bring this.
all you have to do is bring it down and pop right back. So the choice.
Do we mute ourselves?
Hmm?
When do we mute ourselves?
When we throw it out.
When we change it.
Yeah. See what happened? She was getting. Oops.
Her daughters and two sons of Marie Ellen Hennessy and Thomas James Reynolds. In Rockford, she attended St. Mary's School and St. Peter's School, where she was taught by the Sisters of Loretto. She attended Bishop Muldoon Memorial High School, where she received her diploma in 1936. Helen entered the Sisters of Loretto from St. Peter Parish, Rockford, immediately after high school, following her two older siblings, who had become Sister Ellen Thomas and Sister Leo Marie. Helen received the habit and her religious name, Sister Helen Ann, on April the 25th, 1937, pronounced her first vows on April 25th, 1939, and made her final vows on August the 15th, 1942. Through years of summer studies, Sister Helen Ann earned a bachelor's degree in education with a minor in elementary administration from DePaul University in Chicago, a master's in education from St. Mary's College, Xavier, Kansas, and a master's in guidance and counseling from the University of Texas in El Paso. Helen Ann was a true lifelong learner, attending classes, taking correspondence courses, and participating in workshops and trainings throughout her several careers. In her autobiographical pieces found in her file in the archives, Sister Helen Ann says that she had three major works in her life. Helen Ann's first work was in parish elementary schools. Beginning in 1939, she spent 31 years in this ministry, first as a kindergarten teacher in the St. Louis area and Springfield and Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Her last years of teaching kindergarten were in Monrovia, California in 1961 to 64. And in 1964, she was appointed principal for 6 years at St. Patrick's School in El Paso, Texas. In her autobiography, Helen Ann wrote, "Since we no longer wore the black habit and were permitted to select the work we wished to do, I applied for and received a position working with Indian children. Between 1970 and 1982, Helen Ann worked among Native Americans, serving as guidance counselor at the Theodore Roosevelt Boarding School at Fort Apache, Arizona, as a teacher supervisor for the Standing Rock Reservation School, Fort Yates, North Dakota, in special education on the Papago Reservation in Arizona, as guidance counselor at the Oglala Sioux Community College, Pine Ridge, South Dakota, as education specialist at the Santa Rosa Indian School, Sells, Arizona, and for the Bureau of Indian Affairs on the Hopi Reservation, Keams Canyon, Arizona, as a federal program coordinator. Her autobiography makes clear that in many of these places, Helen Ann was alone, spent many weekends without the company of any other human being. During her years with Native Americans, Helen Ann lived and worked for brief periods in Denver. In 1973, she worked for some months as the office manager for Friends of Children in Vietnam, and had the opportunity to travel to Saigon to escort 5 babies for adoption to the United States. Also when in Denver, Helen Ann joined other Lorettos in sponsoring 2 Vietnamese families, the Tran family of 9 and their neighbors, the Luong family of 6. Sister Helen Ann's third life's work had its origins while she was still teaching young children at Cape Girardeau. She wrote, "My students were all afraid of dogs. I didn't want those little children to be afraid, so I spent $4 at a pet store for a small mixed breed dog. I trained the pet and taught the kids how to care for it. And do you know, by the end of the year, each child had a dog." In the 1980s, Helen Ann helped establish the pet prescription program at Denver Children's Hospital, conducting pet visitations with youthful patients. This activity spread to local nursing homes and to the Hospice of St. John in the Denver area. From 1986 through 1992, Helen Ann worked for the Colorado Dog Academy as a dog trainer. In 1990, she began working as a pet therapy volunteer in the area hospice, a service that continued for 8 years. She also was an active pet therapy volunteer at Nazareth Hall Infirmary in El Paso, and then later at Loretto Mother House. And she taught pet education in elementary public schools. As a child, Helen Ann dreamed of working in an orphanage with young children, or, failing that, working in a dog kennel. She fulfilled both dreams with her varied ministries. Her prayer in retirement was, "God, please make me the kind of person my dogs think I am." Sister Helen Ann moved to Loretto Mother House in the year 2000, making her home at first in the Clare House. Helen Ann wrote at the time of her move, "I simply cannot imagine anyone having a more fulfilling life. But God added a final joy. He allowed me to come to Loretto to share the little dogs with the sisters and residents of the infirmary. My gratitude is beyond words." Late in 2006, Helen Ann moved to Loretto Mother House Infirmary. She died peacefully August the 21st at the age of 96 in her 78th year as a sister of Loretto.
A reading from 1 Corinthians. There is a certain wisdom which we express among the spiritually mature. It is not a wisdom of this age, however, nor of the rulers of this age who are headed for destruction. No, what we utter is God's wisdom, a mysterious, hidden wisdom. God planned it before all ages for our glory. None of the rulers of this age knew the mystery. If they had known it, they would never have crucified the Sovereign of glory. Of this wisdom it is written, "Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it so much as dawned on anyone what has been prepared for those who love God."
has not seen, ear has not heard, what God has ready for those who love Him. Spirit of love, oh, give us the mind of Jesus. Teach us the wisdom of God. When pain and sorrow weigh us down, be near to us, O Lord. Forgive the weakness of our faith and bear us up within your peaceful word. Has not seen, ear has not heard, what God has ready for those who love Him. Spirit of love, come give us the mind of Jesus. Teach us the wisdom of God. Our lives are but a single breath. We flower and we fade, yet our days are in your hands, and so you turn in love what love has made. Has not seen, ear has not heard, what God has ready for those who love Him. Spirit of God, come give us the mind of Jesus. Teach us the wisdom of God.
A Navajo prayer as attributed to Chief Yellowlark of the Dakota tribe. O great spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I am small and weak. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you have made, and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise so that I may understand the things you have taught my people. Let me learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. I seek strength, not to be superior to my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes. So when life fades as the fading sunset, my spirit will come to you without shame.
Let us pray. God of all mercy, you have shown Sister Helen Ann the path of life, the fullness of joy in your presence, and happiness in your embrace forever. Welcome her into your presence in the midst of family and friends who have preceded her. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. We will now have our sharing as soon as we get the microphone set up. We'll start with the mother house and then go to other places.
As I was listening to the bio that Eleanor read, I was just thinking Helen Ann was such a person who knew different things she wanted to do and did them, and got the education to do them well. It was moving to me.
I just knew Sister Helen Ann shortly as a resident of Denver, and I guess where I ran across her most of all was at the hospice of St. John, which Father Paul Van Lopkowitz started in Denver, and he was a man, though of total different background in this country as from being from Czechoslovakia, but a man who had great appreciation for people who had good hearts and who cared. And so she fit very well at the hospice, St. John's Hospice in Denver, where she did some very good things for people.
Marie Lourdes. I had the privilege of working in the infirmary at the time Sister Helen Ann came and did pet therapy with her dogs, and really admired her, the way she knew who wanted the dogs and who didn't want the dogs, and she highly respected that. My mother was here as a patient a few of those years and loved dogs. She had dogs throughout my lifetime and after we left home as pets. But I've never seen, the family lit her up, with joy. But boy, when those little dogs came in, that was very, very special. And so I want to remember with gratitude the joy she brought to others.
Um, well, the night that she was dying, a sign went up asking people to come in and sit with her. So I signed my time, and as I went in there, Sister Marie Gord was sitting with her. And Sister looked so peaceful and so quiet, and she hardly changed her expression the whole time I was sitting there. And finally, she breathed her last breath and went with God. She died.
Pauline, when Mattingly's funeral home brought Sister Helen Ann back, Mr. Mattingly, I think that's Junie, the older man, he said, we remember well the in-service that Sister did for the children at Marion Elementary School, so he was grateful for that.
I was just going to follow up on what Lourdes said. She was always so enthusiastic and cheerful, and she spread that cheer around when you ran into her. It was, you know, she always had something kind of exciting to tell you about.
I was Sister Helen Ann's healthcare surrogate. I got a lot of phone calls in California, and most of them were just because she thought maybe if she talked to me, she would tell people, I think I need to talk to Rosemary because I think I have something wrong. But there wasn't anything wrong. It was just she wanted to talk. I was on the phone with her when she died, and she said to me, Rosemary, I'm dying. And I said, I know that. And I think it's best for you to just go on now. And she said, are you sure? I said, I'm positive, which of course I wasn't positive about it all, but anyway, I said, I am positive. And the nurse on duty picked up the phone and said, Rosemary, she's gone. It was that simple, sweet, and as far as I know, absolutely, she went to God with just a sigh.
This is Joanne. I didn't know Helen Ann well, but in the year that I moved here, I lived in Baden House. And because Helen Ann lived in Clare House, we would frequently meet each other on that little road. And I mean, this is nothing extraordinary except that my experience of her was always as someone who was genuinely warm and kind and gracious and grateful. And I hope the same thing can be said of all of us. I trust that it will.
Liz Perez. Helen Ann was my 7th and 8th grade principal at St. Patrick's grade school in El Paso. And I mean, I just remember a very busy, always very intent looking woman running here and running there and administering things, you know, very officiously. And I mean, you know, when you're you're a principal of I don't know if we had kindergarten, but I know we had 1st through 8th grade. You got tons of kids. After a while, one looks just like the other, I'm sure. But, and who really gets to know their grade school principal? But as years went on, and then especially once she moved here, of course I had more of an opportunity. And it's amazing to me, if somebody had said to me, one of these days, you and Sister Helen Ann are going to be living in the same in the same place, I would have laughed. But Helen Ann was also in my community group here at Loretto. And, you know, she participated in stuff, and we all shared different ideas and whatnot. And she was very complimentary to me quite often about saying, oh, you know, I'm really glad you spoke out and you said this, or I liked what you said, and I thought, oh, well, that was very, very nice of her to say that. And one time I remember she said this to me in the dining room, and again, always being very positive and affirming, and I always appreciated it. And just as I was leaving her table and walking away, she must have thought I was beyond earshot, and she says, leaned over to the person over on the other side of the table, and she says, and to think I didn't like her as a kid. Anyway, I thought that was really funny because I can't imagine she would have remembered me as a kid, but, you know, what do I know? The other thing, too, is that, of course, I have great love of the Southwest and anything Native American, and as she did. And so that was something that we would find in common to talk about. And I wanted to honor her love for Native American and Southwest spirituality and anything from the Southwest. And so that's why I thought it was fitting to put her in one of her favorite Southwestern shirts. And then, of course, so many pictures that we found of Helen had Helen holding a dog in her lap. And so, and quite often it was this dog, this kind of dog that's sitting right up here. And she had this in her room. So I thought, we need to have that with her. Anyway, that's how I thought I would honor Helen on her last days here with us.
I think we're finished here at the Mother House, Nicole, so we'll switch over to you. We need to plug that other microphone in.
Okay, let's go to St. Louis. Is there anyone in St. Louis who would like to speak?
Well, I can tell Helen Ann dog stories. During the time that she lived in Denver, Helen Ann was a great baker, and she had a recipe for liver cookies. And every dog in the community was kept in Helen Ann's liver cookies, and they loved them. She would never show up at our door without cookies for our dog. And I remember one time when she showed up at the Monday night Mass at Bridge with a miniature Doberman Pinscher puppy that must have been about 2 pounds and about 4 inches high. And I was scared to death somebody was going to sit on it. She would go out to the airport. She had friends who were dog breeders, and they were breeders of the little Havanese, the little white dogs that she had. And when they would have a litter and the puppies would be ready to go to their homes, they would put them on an airplane down in Durango or wherever they lived in southern Colorado and fly them to Denver. And Helen Ann would meet the puppy at the airport and bring it home for a few days, and then take it back to the airport and put it on the rest of its journey. And that was just a great service to people who wanted dogs. When she had to move from St. Louis, where she was living at the Sarah community, back to the mother house, she had a little dog named Mitch, and Midge for midget. And Midge was a little fox terrier puppy about 9 months old. And friends from Denver had given her Midge. But by that time, her vision was such that she had a terrible time keeping track of Midge. And so when she moved back to the infirmary, she wanted to know if I would take Midge back to Denver. And so Midge ended up spending a night with Eileen and Irma and I at Finkman, driving Eileen crazy, and flew in a little dog carrier under my car seat. And Sue Kinney and Gabe Mason picked me up at the airport, and we took Midge back to her mommy. So Helen Ann was truly a great friend of dogs. And I think that's all from St. Louis.
Okay, Mother House, back to you.
We'll close with My Soul Give Thanks. My soul give thanks to God, and all I need, bless God's name. My soul give thanks to the Lord, and never forget God's word.